How did you deal with loss?
Faith. You know, I'm Irish, I'm Catholic. The church has been a big part of my life.
Pierce Brosnan made an announcement that no one saw coming. The former James Bond is 71 years old and getting ready. For the worst, his first wife died at 43 of ovarian cancer. And then his daughter. He died at age 41 of the same disease. Now something has happened that's making him face his worst fear. The man who played the toughest spy in the world is fighting a war he can't win, and what he wants to do next. As everyone was scared when Pierce Brosnan was born on May 16, 1953 in Drogheda, Ireland. He didn't have much money when he was born, family history, and it turned out he didn't have a father. His dad was a carpenter named Thomas. Pierce lost touch with him so young that he couldn't remember his face or voice. Or even being there. It was like he was nowhere to be found. His mother May was left to carry the weight. She worked as a nurse to keep her life together. Things were already going badly, but in 1957 she made a hard decision. She left. She left Pierce, in Ireland and went to London to look for work. She had no choice but to make that choice, which left Pierce's young world. What was supposed to be a short break turned into 7 long years. During that time, he was moved from one cousin to another. Nana and Papa in Navan, then an uncle and aunt in Trim. Each new home had there were new rules, schools, and people Pierce had never met before. He never stayed long enough till he learned to be quiet and watched to stay alive. He was always the new kid who was always on the outside. His teachers noticed something about him. He was smart, but pulling away, always staring out the window, never quite present. Then everything changed in 1964. When he was 11, he moved to Green. His mother got married again, and her new husband, William Carmichael, worked in a plant. He was nice and patient. But for a kid who had grown up without Pierce, had a lot of different feelings about his new home. He was happy and sad at the same time. To see his mother again, but he was also mad that she had a new boyfriend. Her life a man who wasn't his father. William still tried. He taught Pierce little things. He never tried too hard. He fished. Fixed things, and learned how to trust again. Never tried to take someone else's place. One day, William took Pierce to the movies. It was 1964, and the movie was Goldfinger. Sean Connery played James Bond, lit up the screen that night. Bond wasn't just a character anymore. Pierce thought that Bond was strong, sure of himself, and in great shape. But Pierce saw the opposite in him. Pierce wanted to be in charge like that, so by age 16, he made another. He did something brave when he quit London School and went to St. Martin's School of Art. He didn't have any money he had no clear goals, just a strong desire to paint. He adored the work of Francis Bacon and Lucian Freud. A long time ago, playing wasn't even on his mind. Illustration and design. While his friends came, he lived on toast and tea. He came from a better background and was eager to show that he belonged. But fate had other plans. P.S. found a theater school by accident in 1971, while he was still studying art. South London, he saw a fire eater practicing. He chose to walk instead, away. Pierce asked if he could try. That one-of-a-kind moment changed the way he wrote his future. The people around him saw a mix of bravery and naturalness in him. They asked him to join. He had never acted before, but now things began to fall into place. Like James Bond, he was now in a dangerous and alluring world. Soon after, Pierce started working at the Drama Centre London, where he stayed for 3 years, from 1973 to 1974. 1976, he worked out harder than ever before. The school was tough, and more than 60% of kids dropped out because their teachers were mean. They picked them apart to build them back up. Some quit, and others had. Pierce went through breaks, but he kept going. He worked extra jobs and studied Shakespeare. He even learned how to do mime and circus shows. It cost £1,200 a year, which was a lot of money back then. Pierce never gave up. In 1976, a play called in the movie Wait Until Dark, Pierce played a part that made people think. Making people feel bad. The director saw something cold about him. Scary that edge worked. A year later, he took on a brave part in The Red Devil Battery Sign, a hard Tennessee Williams play. The play didn't do well in the US, but Pierce brought it to life in London. People started to notice that he had moved on to film after his act got good reviews. Next, in 1980, he had a part in Blink and You Miss It in The Mirror Cracked with Liz Taylor. He was on screen for less than 30 seconds and made only $50. It was a start. That same year, he was in The Long Good Friday with Helen Mirren and Bob Hoskins. He played a small part in an IRA movie. It was a big hit at the time, but over time it became a cult favorite. And there was Pierce. Pierce Brosnan was not well known in 1982, but he was quietly making his way to fame. He had done some British TV and stage work outside of the UK, but nothing else. Major. Then something strange happened. He tried out for a small part on a new show called Remington Steele, but not as the hero, but as a murder victim. It would have been one scene and done with it, but NBC's casting director saw something, and they saw something magnetic about him on the screen, so they called him. That choice changed, not for a small part, but for the lead role. Everything. The first person who thought of Remington Steele was an experienced American con artist in his 50s. Brosnan was only 29 years old. Irish and not well known in the US, the makers still took a chance on over. There were 200 auditions, and many of the players were well-known Americans. Brosnan got the part. They almost didn't give him the part because of his Irish accent. They were afraid that American fans wouldn't accept a foreign lead. He took on the part of Remington Steele, cool, smooth, and mysterious. People loved him for it. The show started on October 1, 1982, it was a hit right away. It was NBC's second highest rated new show that year. In its first year, 15.6 million people watched every week. But it wasn't a smooth ride. The show was cancelled in the middle of its fourth season. 1986 fans were mad. The company changed its mind. They came back for one more. Last season, the last show aired in February 1987 and nearly 26 million people watched it. That's the kind of ending that most shows can only dream of at its best. NBC made more than $50 million a year from Remington Steele. International sales of ads brought in an extra $200 million. The show ran in more than 80 other countries. Also, something strange happened in the US between 1983 and 1986. And the number of people applying for private detective licenses jumped by 340%. It was clear that Brosnan's cool and smart personality touched a nerve, but success came with a price. 2 months after the show first aired, reviewers were already calling it bad. Brosnan was praised as the next James Bond in January 1983. Entertainment Week magazine said he was the most Bond-like character since Sean Connery. After a few months, Bond director Albert Cubby Broccoli got in touch. He was watching and he was interested. By 1984, the rumors were widespread, and NBC jumped on them. Their ads gave off an air of Brosnan's secret agent vibe, and TV Guide did a cover story on him. He asked the next 07 even Ian Fleming's wife, and Fleming told everyone that Brosnan looked and behaved just like her husband. Had hoped for Bond. At the same time, Brosnan was being very harsh. He was nominated for a Golden Globe that same year for his part in Nancy Astor. It was only his second major part on TV. He was up against legends like Anthony Hopkins and John Gielgud. Still, Brosnan almost won. People in the business said he lost by only 3 votes. Even the real Astor family, who had originally sent him, fought against the show. His Bond journey wouldn't be easy, though. Some people think he was first offered Bond in 1985, but that's not true. He was actually thought of. It wasn't clear to Roger Moore if he should play the part in 1983's For a View to a Kill. It was time for Brosnan to work on another movie. He had met Broccoli on the set of For Your Eyes. Only where Brosnan's wife Cassandra Harris played a small part did Broccoli show up. He took one look at him and said, "If he can act, he's my guy." But the studio fell apart. Moore was offered a huge sum of money, over $3.5 million, to return, so Brosnan's gun was again pushed back. Then in 1986, something even worse, Remington Steele was cancelled. But when word spread that Brosnan could be the next Bond, the show's numbers went up, and NBC saw an opportunity. They scrapped the cancellation and asked for a short fifth season. Because Brosnan was still under contract. Couldn't make Bond movies. The attention he got for being tied to, he was stuck, and Bond was used against him while he finished the last season. Tim Dalton got the part of Remington Steele. Bond producers went on to other projects. That moment changed everything for Brosnan and for Bond. Dalton was Brosnan's friend. He was sad to lose the part. But he had to smile. It didn't go well because Dalton's Bond was darker and rougher. License to Kill didn't do well in the US, where it only made $34 million. Brosnan sat back and watched. He knew he could have brought something. Fans call the years between 1986 and 1994 the lost years. Brosnan did not go away. In the Fourth Protocol, he made smart decisions. In 1987, he played a British spy in a Cold War movie. It wasn't Bond, but it was close. He played a magical character in Nomads, 1986, which showed how versatile he was. He played a smooth-talking tuxedoed hero in Diet Coke ads. A small nod to James Bond, Brosnan met Cassandra Harris in the late 1970s. She was already working as an actor. Sandra Colleen Waits was born in Sydney in 1948. The spark was quick when they met. Pierce didn't mean to fall in love with her, he just thought she was pretty. Things quickly changed, and by December 27, they were living together in Wimbledon. That same year, in 1980, they got married. Cassandra had just been through a rough breakup, so this new chapter was very important to her. She had 2 children from that marriage. Chris Pierce didn't think twice about joining their lives. He did it like he'd always done it. When Dermot Harris, Cassandra's ex-husband, died of a heart attack in 1986, Pierce officially took the kids in as his own. They took his name, but it was more than just a piece of paper. Pierce didn't have he never had a father, so he did everything he could to be the one he never had. Said, "I wasn't a dad, I was just Pierce. In 1983, I became a dad." Cassandra and Pierce had a son together. They named him Sean. Now they have 5 children. Things were going well in life, the kids got along, and Pierce's job was getting better. But his family came first. He wanted to love them the way he never was loved as a child. He made sure they were safe. It was a wonderful year for Cassandra when she was cast in the Bond movie in 1981. For Your Eyes Only, before Pierce even thought about becoming a Bond girl, she played 1007. While Pierce was shooting, she met Albert Broccoli, who makes Bond movies. Cassandra had faith in him and pushed him to look for the part of Broccoli. Pierce impressed them and they thought he could be the next James Bond. But Pierce was stuck in a deal with Remington Steele, so he couldn't play the part yet. Cassandra. He had her heart set on it, but she never got to see it happen. 1987, while Pierce was shooting The Deceivers in India, Cassandra, everything changed. Started to feel really sick. They flew back to London. The news was bad, had cancer of the ovaries. It wasn't a small lump or something that was easy to treat. It hit like a truck when they got the news. Pierce said, "From day one we had a fight on our hands." What came next were 4 terrible years for Cassandra. She had 8 surgeries and chemo for a year and a half. Her hair fell out. Her body got weaker, but she stayed strong. She had doubts about every treatment she got. Facing everything with bravery, Pierce was there for her the whole time. During that time, he called himself the quiet party. He was always there, but he wasn't always. When Sean was little, he would sometimes act like he was the doctor. It broke my heart that Cassandra's mother had died of the same cancer. Bad luck, it was in their genes. That made things even worse. Now they had to worry about Charlotte as well. Pierce pushed for early tests and Cassandra had already died, but he still wanted to help other people. In December 1991, her time was up. One night, as they lay in bed, Pierce was very sad. Cassandra said in a whisper, "Please don't worry, sweetheart. It's just a life winding down." She was still the strong one in the end. She didn't want machines, or she didn't want to die in a hospital. She wanted to die with honor. She died in December 28, 1991, she was only 43 years old, and Pierce and her son Christopher were. She had Charlotte with her, but Charlotte was studying acting in London and was on the phone. People were enjoying Christmas right now, but Pierce was making plans for her. The hardest part was telling 8-year-old Shaw that his mother had died. Pierce had to raise 3 kids by himself all of a sudden. Sean was 8 years old, Christopher was. She was 20 years old and he was 19. He said it was the first time he had really felt sad. He said, Cassandra made him who he was. Pierce Brosnan later said, "She'll always be in every part of my being." Finally cast as James Bond in 1994. What made it even more personal was his wife Cassandra Harris. She played a Bond girl in the movie For Your Eyes Only. Back in 1981, she was sick with cancer and pushed he should try for the part again. She wanted to see him play James Bond before she died. So when he finally got it, it wasn't just a win, it was both a victory and a loss. And more in one. His first appearance in GoldenEye was a big deal. The movie had already been a disaster, not just for him but for the whole Bond series. It had gone through several directors and its budget had grown to $60 million. MGM was almost broke. If Bond would have been done right then if GoldenEye had failed, but it made $353 million. Around the world, just that tank chase scene through St. Petersburg cost $8 million. Brosnan did most of his acts himself, including a scary bungee jump off a 220m dam in Switzerland. It was so risky that insurance companies wouldn't cover it. The movie came out exactly 30 years after Sean Connery's last performance. Diamonds Are Forever was the only real James Bond movie. It wasn't just any movie, it was a Nintendo even made the video game GoldenEye 0007 to go along with it. That game changed the business and brought Bond to a whole new audience. New generation. The next 3 Bond movies made by Brosnan were even bigger hits. About $1.238 billion, but those wins came at a cost to one person. When Never Dies came out in 1997, he was still sad about Cassandra's death from 6 years before. That hurt the character. It cost $12 million to film one chase scene in Saigon. They had to build a whole Vietnamese street in England just for it. The opening scene of Not Enough in 1999 was 14 minutes long, which was the longest for a Bond movie. Bond's first main female bad guy. They even blew up a real oil pipeline, using 120 gallons of fuel to make a fireball that could be seen from 10 m away. In 2002, Die Another Day came out. It was Bond's 40th anniversary and Brosnan almost died when his parasailing trick went wrong and he was pulled under the water. 30-foot waves hit him and put him in the hospital with cold. That same movie had a $300,000 Aston Martin that can't be seen and a huge icehouse set in Iceland with 1,000 tons of ice, but Brosnan did even better than that. He won the It Was Crazy that he beat Shaw in the 1996 Saturn Award for Best Actor. Connery, who was up for The Rock that same year. It was the first time this Bond is better than the last one. Even Steven Spielberg called him brazen after Brosnan turned down an offer from GoldenEye to play Indiana Jones. Stay true to Bond. That choice cost him probably $50 million, but it showed how dedicated he was to the part. Everything looked great until 2004, he was shooting in the Bahamas at night. Life was good. He had done 4 Bond movies that made $1.4 billion. He was in great shape from training to throw. Thoughts for Bond 21. Then, at 2:47 p.m. the producers let him go without giving him any warning or reason. The phone rang. 47 seconds long. You did a great job as James Bond. Thank you very much. Was it colder because of how well his movies did? Die Another Day had made $431.9 million, which was the most ever for a James Bond movie. But the makers had already made up their minds that they wanted a younger Bond. Delivered the blow when he was alone and weak. It took only 3 days. Everything changed. 3 movie deals fell through, studios pulled out. After that, letters showed that he was thought to be too Bond and hard to cast in anything else. His price cut from $12 million to $3 million, and he had to sell. Of 12 employees, he fell deeply depressed, and his children saw him cry when the trailer for Casino Royale came out. It hit him hard. His part had been handed off without even a goodbye. It turned out that the managers had been putting other players through tests for 2 years while acting like they still believed in him hurt more than being fired.